Hello everyone, welcome to IAS with Arihant. Student, as you know, we started a very beautiful series, that is Prelims Possible series, and this will be important for all state PSC examination as well as for the UPSC examination. And as you know already, students, the vacancy, or you can say the notification of UPSC is already out. So I recommend you one thing: just try to fill up the form as soon as possible, so you will get your preference choice for your examination center. Otherwise there will be hassle. Okay, so not need to worry for anything. We are going to start this session as this is the second day of this class, and we already discussed one thing. Student, if you want to get the good marks in your prelims examination, because prelims is one of the most important hurdle. Okay, as you see, there is a multiple type of questions they're asking. So for that purpose, students, to get the 100% selection in the prelims examination, Arihant they bring a book that is called as Prelims Possible, and there's a subject wise book, and this is Indian Polity book, and it contain a very unique basically you can say the very unique content here. Here you'll get the chapter wise notes as well as the topic wise notes. Along with that, you will get the MCQs that was asked in the previous year question paper of state PSC examination as well as the UPSC IAS. So basically this book contained from 1990 to 2023 questions, and in the last, students, there is a very beautiful section that is called as Prelims Bullet. Okay, so here what you get, and this is going to be very important, Prelims PYQ Bullet. So I recommend you one thing: go with this book, and this will be very beneficial for you students. Okay, so we are going to start the today's topic, but before that, once again I like to mention what is the feature of this book, students. As you know, many of you may not aware with the same, but it is our responsibility, it is my responsibility to discuss the same, students. Okay, if you see here, student, this book is specially created for the prelims examination for state as well as UPSC, and it contain a chapter wise and topic wise division. There's a topical mind maps, so by that maps you can get the easy information. Along with that, students, one more important thing here: it is 100% error free. Okay, means everything is refined and everything is clear, and it is easy to understand, and you will get the knowledge plus for some typical questions. So this is going to be very important. If some question is there that is important for the coming examination, we are mentioning there, yes, it will be important. And it contains 3500 plus previous year question bullets also. So this will be good for you, students. This is the feature of this book, and you must have this book, students, as well as you must share this information with your friends also. Okay, so we are moving further. Okay, so we are going to discuss the MCQs here, and in the last class, students, we started with the constitutional development of India. And as you know, students, constitution came into existence on 26th of November 1949. Okay, so this is the adoption of Constitution Day, but it was fully enacted on 26th of January 1950. But we need to know how this constitution came into existence. So for that purpose, we are discussing the constitutional development of India. So as we already discussed, the Britishers came to India for the trade purpose, but in 1773 they introduced a act in India, and that was called as a Regulating Act. And it is for the first time a law was introduced by the British Parliament in India, and that was basically regulation of company in India. Okay, and student, what you see, they created law over India till 1947. Okay, and the date was 15th of August 1947 when India got independence. After that, we made our constitution, and student, what you see, it was implemented on this date. One very important thing, students, you have to understand, this development is divided into two parts. Okay, a very important event was 1857 revolt. Everyone aware with the same. Okay, if you're not aware with the polity, if you're not aware with the history, definitely I am 100% sure you all aware with the revolt of 1857. So what you see, students, there was development of the constitution that was brought by the British East India Company, and they were ruling over India, students. Okay, when the revolt of 1857 was taken place, so a new things is going to be done, that British East India Company was ended, and here Crown is going to take the responsible government, and Crown Act was introduced in 1858. Okay, it was the date of 1st November, and what it was introduced means it was proclaimed from the Allahabad. I hope you all able to understand. And what you see, students, from this point up to the 1947, this is a new beginning, a new chapter in Indian history started, and that was means the basically the rulers are the Britishers, but initially it was ruled by the British East India Company, but from here now Crown is going to take the direct responsibility. Now each and every rule in India is going to introduced by the British Parliament. So in the today's topic we are going to discuss the same. If you feel doubt, if you feel any problem, I am always open for your discussion. As well as those watching this session in recorded format, I recommend you one thing, we will discuss the MCQs also. So just give your comment, give your answer in the comment box also, so it will be good for you as well as for understanding, and we'll trying to find out how many of you getting the proper data from the IAS with Arihant students. Okay, so now we are going to start the today's important data, and students, this is topic 2 of the first chapter, that is Act under the British Crown, students. Okay, so we already discussed that there was British East India Company from 1773 to Charter Act 1853. It was introduced under the British East India Company, but now this is the British Crown, students. A very important discussion here, that is a revolt of 1857. Now why this revolt was taken place, students? As British East India Company exploited India as well as the political leaders, and it impacted on the economic condition of the farmers as well as the rulers as well as all community. So that's why they came together and they did a revolt, and it was a very massive revolt, and it is also considered a Sepoy Mutiny. It is also called as the First War of Independence. So student, after the revolt of 1857, now the British Crown is going to take the direct responsibility. Now they are going to commit one thing, they are going to give the good governance. What they are committing? They are committing that we are going to provide the good governance to India. Okay, good governance, we are going to means we are not going to exploit Indian, as well as will include Indian in the administration. Okay, and see, it is very important, student. It is also called as Act for Better Governance in India. Okay, so this is one thing, and students, this is called as the first law after the revolt of 1857 that proclaimed now the British East India Company rule is going to be ended. Now the whole sole authority and responsibility is transferred to the, in the term of territory, military and revenue, it is transferred to the British Crown. Now who will be the responsible here? The British Crown, students. So sometime, as you know, after the revolt of 1857, they took a means they introduced an act that was for the first time in India. They are committing that we are going to create a responsible government. So sometime it is also called as Magna Carta of Indian Administration, because from here a charter is going to be introduced. It is also called as Great Charter, where there will be British monarch, there will be crown as well as administration. These all will function under the control of rules and regulations. So that's why it is called as Magna Carta of Indian Administration, students. We already mentioned that now the power, or basically the rule that was initially made by the British East India Company, it is going to transfer to the Queen or Crown, and at that time the British Crown or the monarch was headed by Queen Victoria. And students, there was a very important thing also takes place. As you know already, there was court of directors, as well as there is a board of controller. So board of controller was created by 1784. It is basically introduced by Pitt's India Act, and we already discussed that the board of controller has 6 members, and students, they are appointed by whom? They are appointed by the crown. Okay, they are appointed by crown. And very, very important thing is, students, here they are appointed by crown, and what is going to happen? This is necessary. Here in 1784, there is a 2 type of body. One is basically called as court of director. Initially they are functioning as commercial function also, as well as administrative function. But after this 1784, there was a clear demarcation कि now the court of direction will function as a commercial head, and basically this board of controller will function as a administrative head in India. So this is very, very important, student. It is important to understand what they introduce and how they introduce. I hope you all able to understand, and this is very important. You must give your answer in the comment box. And see, students, here the functioning of court of director was also abolished. Board of controller was also abolished, because there is a dual government system here. Now, for the more clarity, there will be a new office is going to be created, that is called as Office of Secretary of State. And students, it is very important to understand the Office of Secretary of State, he will be placed in London, and students, he is a cabinet minister of government, cabinet minister of British government or British Parliament. Okay, and students, the Secretary of State has 15 members, and student, they are basically 7 and 8. It is divided once again. There will be 7 members that was elected by court of director. Out of these 15, 7 members are elected by court of director, and 8 member is basically appointed by crown. Okay, appointed by crown. So now what they are going to do, they are going to check, they are going to create a check and balance of the Secretary of State activity for Indian affair. I hope you all able to understand. As we already discussed, the Pitt's India Act introduced the basically this board of controller. This was abolished, and here see, the revolt of 1857 was taken for because of multiple reasons, and one reason was the political cause. Political cause, and under this political cause, 2 are the very important. One is called as doctrine of lapse, and another was subsidiary alliance. So subsidiary alliance was introduced by Wellesley. Doctrine of lapse was introduced by Dalhousie in 1848. Student, this created problem in the Indian rulers. So that's why with the introduction of this Crown Act, this doctrine of lapse was ended. Okay, so I'm trying to connect your data with the history also, and if you feel, let's suppose you're not able to understand any term, you all are free to ask any question. I hope you understand. So this doctrine of lapse was ended, and student, one more modification is going to take place. I'm just giving a quick outline. As we already discussed, there was Governor of Bengal. This post is modified as Governor General of Bengal by 1773 Regulating Act. The Governor General of Bengal post modified as Governor General of India, and their power also going to be increased by the 1833 Act. This Governor General of India post is going to be modified as Viceroy. Okay, it is going to be modified as Viceroy by 1858 Crown Act, and here will be more responsibility given to the Viceroy. They will be directly, they will function as a messenger. They will function as a basically connection between the India as well as the Britain. Okay, so this is very, very important. Here the Governor General of India post is converted as the Viceroy of India. And students, there's one more factual data. There's a who was the first Viceroy of India. This type of question they are asked in the examination. So it was Canning. Okay, So who was he? He was Canning, and he's the first Viceroy of India, including one very important data I like to share with you students. The revolt of 1857, when it was taken place, at that time Governor General of India was Canning. So this is also important to understand. I hope you all able to understand, students. Easy. So now we are moving further. Okay, and by this act only, as we already discussed, who will be directly responsible, who is going to be basically the controller of the India. So it will be the crown. So automatically the head means he is going to take the military responsibility as well as the naval headship is given to whom? It is reached to crown, students. I hope you understand, everyone. Anybody have any doubt? And we already discussed that there will be a post that will be called as Secretary of State. So Stanley was the first Secretary of State for India, students, after the Crown Act. One more data, it is historical data. As Government of India Act, it was proclaimed on 1st of November 1858. And where it was proclaimed, students, basically the place was Allahabad. Now it is called as Prayagraj, and that's why it is called as Allahabad Proclamation. Student, Allahabad was created as a capital for one day. So this is also important to remember. I hope you all able to connect the same. Okay, so now after you'll see there was nothing given to Indian, means there was only limited thing, but just after 3 years, now they are going to give responsibilities. Now they are going to share power with the Indian students. And here a new act was introduced in 1861, and this is called as Indian Council Act 1861. And here, students, what you see, the power of provincial governor and viceroy was increased. So there was some provinces where they are going to share power. Okay, so decentralization of power of the council, and a very important system was introduced here, that is called as portfolio system. Portfolio. What is portfolio? It is just like ministry. As we have ministry today, like Ministry of Defense is taken care by Shri Rajnath Singh ji. In the same format, student, at that time, for the first time, they are going to introduce the portfolio system or departmentalization, means there will be department and there will be a head. I hope you all getting it. So this is about the Indian Council Act 1861. We will see it in the detailed format along with the questions also. After that, students, as you find, 1861 the rule was created, Indian Council Act. In between there was some small acts was also made, and in 1885, on 28th of December 1885, Indian National Congress came into existence. Initially, Indian National Congress was basically the Britishers thought that it is a very small body and they are not going to do anything. But as Indian National Congress gave a nationalism idea, because from all over India the people started joining Indian National Congress and different type of ideology was introduced here. And you will find the students they demanded for power. Who? Basically Indian National Congress member. And now the Britishers are now compelled to share power with the Indians. And what you see here, the Indian Council Act 1892 was passed. Okay, and here they means initially there was power sharing. Some member was included, Indian member was included, but they are not permanent. Okay, non-official member. And here the number of the this non-official member is going to be increased in the provincial council, as well as here they have a right to discuss on budget, but they don't have right to vote. They don't have a right to ask supplementary question. So see, the development was very slow. Slowly they are going to share power with Indian students, as well as this is the beginning of representation in India, because here election is going to be conducted. That will be indirect, but yes, it is the beginning of democracy in India, students, or you can say the democratic setup in India. So we will discuss the same. Now we are moving further. I hope you all able to understand. So this is about the three important development, Indian Council Act 1892. After that, once again students, there will be Indian Council Act 1909. It is also called as Morley-Minto reform. I like to elaborate here. Morley was the Secretary of State. Okay, Prasanna Kumar will do. Okay, Secretary of State, and Minto was the basically Viceroy. Okay, so Morley was the Secretary of State, Minto was the Viceroy, and they made they basically introduced a reform. What the rules initially that was introduced in 1892, now it is going to be more updated. And here students, this is called as Morley-Minto reform, and in 1909 now Britishers are going to introduce a new problem for India, because they are going to introduce a new policy, that is divide and rule. So here they introduce a communal representation. So by 1909 it is also called as Communal Representation Act. Okay, it is another name of this act. Why? For the first time they are going to give a separate electorate. What is separate electorate here? As they are going to start the election also. So here they mention that ki, okay, there will be Muslim leader, and Muslim leader is only voted by Muslims, and that Muslim leader will be responsible towards Muslims. So now they are going to introduce a policy, okay, divide and rule students. Okay, so this is one thing that is very, very important. It is also called as Communal Representation Act. And here they are going to create multiple division in the upcoming rules students, or upcoming reforms. Just after 10 years they are going to introduce another reform. It is also called as Government of India Act 1919, and basically it is made by Montagu and Chelmsford. Montagu was the Secretary of State, and Chelmsford was basically, he was the basically Viceroy. Okay, so sometime, let's suppose in your examination they are going to write down this Montfort reform. So you not need to worry for anything. This Montfort reform is also called as Montagu-Chelmsford reform. Here students, we already discussed that in 1853, okay, basically open competitive examination was started, and here Indian Civil Services examination is open for Indians also. I like to mention one very important thing students. Initially there was one thing, horse, like today you have to clear the CSAT, in the same format students, horse riding was needed. If someone not aware with the horse riding, he can't participate in the examination. So at that time horse riding was compulsory, and the age was also very limited. It is from 18 to 23. Okay, Shailendra, this is organization channel Arihant. I hope you all aware with the Arihant. It is a worldwide name. So I am working here IAS with Arihant. So join the classes and participate there. Okay, I hope you got it. Now, so here the ICS examination was open for Indian also. Open competition was started, but this examination initially it was conducted in London. But in 1919, the Government of India Act, or Montagu-Chelmsford reform, here they mentioned that now we are going to create a Union Public Service Commission in India. Initially it was basically Indian Civil Services, and for the first time it was created on 1st of October 1926. Okay, UPSC, and but it was created by a commission students that is called as Lee Commission. Okay, so Lee Commission was created in 1923-24, and what you see here, student, they introduced the basically they recommended that now we need to conduct examination in India also, and then after this the examination is going to be conducted in India. Okay, and another very important thing students, by the Government of India Act 1919, there will be diarchy. Diarchy is going to be introduced in the provincial. Now we'll say, sir, what is diarchy? It is very important. Diarchy and bicameralism is the different thing. No? So diarchy was introduced here. Diarchy basically introduced in the provinces. Okay, so in the provinces there will be two type of list. One means basically power, you can simply say. One is called as reserved provision as well as transferred provision. We are going to discuss the same thing in the question format also. So reserved provision and transferred provision. So there will be governor and legislative assembly member. They are going to work together. Okay, and there will be division of power. So we'll discuss about the same once we are going to start with the question, students. I hope you are able to understand. So two list for administration, central and provincial was also created. Means that there is a division of power. You will see here. After the Government of India Act 1919, students, there will be a Simon Commission who came to India. Simon Commission came to India for giving the constitutional right to Indian. In 1927 it was created. In 1928 they reached to India, but it was boycotted. And when it was boycotted, now they mentioned that now we need to share more power with the Indians. And students, after that a round table conference is called in London, and then Government of India Act was created by the British in the Britain. And students, here they introduce a form of government, that is All India Federation. Okay, because they created provinces. Okay, provinces was also there, but yes, they are going to create a unitary form of government here. Okay, they abolished diarchy in the state. Why they introduced the diarchy in the state? As you know, there was two type of provision, two type of power, and that was creating problem. So under the development of Indian Constitution 1935 Government of India Act, what you see, they abolished the diarchy. Means now only one power, means there will be no division of reserve and transferred power. Okay, and students, basically they given more autonomy to the provinces. Okay, under the same act it was says that there will be a federal court is going to be created. So by this 1937 a federal court was created in the India. And students, after the implementation of our constitution, it is 26th of January 1950, the Supreme Court of India came into existence. That is different, but yes, it was initially called as Federal Court of India because they opted the method for the federalism. Here students, they also mention one thing, the creation of Reserve Bank, or you can say central bank, to control the financial activities in India, students. So the Reserve Bank of India was also created. It was created initially in Calcutta, but later it is shifted to Mumbai. Headquarter you will get in Mumbai now. Okay, and Burma was separated from India. Burma now called as Myanmar. Initially it was a part of India also. Okay students, I hope you understand. After the Government of India Act 1935, there will be World War II. And student, here when the Britishers are going to involve in World War II, after that there will be Quit India movement, individual satyagraha, and that created one thing. Now Britishers are compelled to leave India. Okay, so after that students, Mountbatten came to India as a Viceroy, last Viceroy of India. And there will be Indian Independence Act was introduced, and under the Indian Independence Act, students, there will be two dominion is going to be created. One is India, another is Pakistan. So two nation is going to be made. And students, from by this Indian Independence Act 1947, India became an independent country, means the crown rule is going to be ended. Okay, so I hope you understand this outline. Now, as we already discussed, for better understanding, for getting more marks, and for the fast revision, you must go with the same book, students. And this book contains each and every information in a very systematic format. So I personally recommend, yes, you need to go with the book for your better understanding. Now we are moving towards the topic 2 of the chapter 1, and the first question is here. Student, this is very, very important. I will discuss each and everything in a detailed format. I'm just going to read the question, give your answer in the comment box. Now, the question says that which one of the following act had created the Office of Secretary of State for India, students? It is Council Act 1816, the Government of India Act 1858, the Morley-Minto Reform or the Montagu Chelmsford Reform. Student, Morley-Minto Reform was introduced in 1909. It is also called as Indian Council Act. It is also called as, for the first time, Communal Representation Act was introduced in India. Here they given reservation to Muslims. So Muslim separate electorate they created here. I hope you all understand. Another thing is, students, here what you find, Montagu Chelmsford Reform. It was introduced in 1919, and the very important thing here, they introduced the diarchy at provincial level. Okay, and one more thing, they introduced the bicameral legislature. Okay, so we are going to discuss these things also. So just tell me when the Secretary of State for India was created. Student, we already discussed that after the revolt of 1857, Crown Act was introduced. 1858, Crown Act was introduced. With the implementation of Crown Act, what you find, there was a court of director as well as basically there is a board of control. These two body came to end. Now there is a question ki now who will going to take care for the same thing. Initially the board of control is doing what? They are doing the administrative function. Okay, and board of director, the court of directors is basically doing the functioning here as a commercial head. Now after the ending of these body, students, now we required a person who is basically take care for the Indian affair. So by this Crown Act, it was abolished and a post was created that is called as Secretary of State in 1858. And students, it is basically assisted by 15 member. Okay, and Secretary of State for Indian affair, and he was appointed, basically he was a cabinet minister and he will be the part of British Parliament. Now students, for more better understanding, as I already told you, this book is going to be very, very helpful because this question is from the same book. Okay, and what you see here, it is mentioned that this question was asked in 2017 UPPSC examination, and if you want to see explanation, very beautifully it was explained here. So as you know, the Government of India Act 1858, that is mentioning about the Secretary of State for the first time in India, as well as the Governor General post is also modified. So here the things are written in a very systematic format. The Government of India Act 1858 created the office of Secretary of State for India, who was responsible for overall administration of India and was answerable to the British Parliament, students. As I already told you, he was a cabinet minister. Okay, so he was the member of British cabinet. So the Secretary of State was the member of British cabinet. So this is important to understand, and very, very important, students. This act is basically intended to bring the good governance in India. But student, if you see here, under the Good Governance Act, or you can say the Crown Act, or you can say the Government of India Act 1858, they're not sharing power with the Indians. So can you say that this is good act? You will say no sir, it is not a good act. So for the same purpose, students, in 1861, when they are going to introduce the Indian Council Act, they are going to share power with the Indian. So I hope you understand it. Now we are moving towards the another question, students, and I just made a very detailed explanation for you each and every question, as well as in this book also the basically explanation are it is written in a very well managed format, students. So just opt the second question. It is also from the UPPSC 2006. So consider the following statement. It is statement based question. Yesterday, or means yes, it is day before yesterday, there was a paper UPPSC ARO. So in that paper also one question from the historical background of Indian Constitution. I hope you all able to connect. Okay, so now there's the first question on the screen. Second question on the screen with the first statement. The Charter Act 1853 was abolish East India Company monopoly of Indian trade The second statement, under the Government of India Act 1858, the British Parliament abolished the East India Company altogether and undertook the responsibility of ruling India directly, students. So just opt the right answer. The statement is here and option is here. Option A suggests that only one is correct. Option B suggests that only two is correct. Option C says that both A and B, and option D says that neither one nor two. So you can see, if we go with the same students, this was the 4th Charter Act 1853, and it says that it abolished the East India Company monopoly of trade in India. But as you know, we already aware in 1813, the monopoly of British East India Company for trade in India was ended, except there was two provision. What was the exception? Tea, opium, and trade with the China, students. This is one thing. Another important thing, students, it was 1813, it was ended, but in 1833 there was a complete ban. Okay, means there was a complete monopoly was ended. So automatically this option 1 is going to be incorrect. Okay, under the Government of India Act 1858, we already discussed that the British Parliament abolished East India Company rule and they introduced the Indian responsibility under the hand of British Crown. So automatically option B is going to be correct, students. So here if you see the explanation of the question, it is very beautifully mentioned here. So once you read, you'll find that this book contains lots of information in a very systematic and unique format. So option B is correct only. Okay, because only statement 2 is correct. This is incorrect. I told you the monopoly was ended in 1813, students. So what means the explanation is here already given. So only statement 2 is correct. Why? So here the why answer is, so Government of India Act 1858 abolished the East India Company and transferred the power of government, territories and revenue. The power of government, territories and revenue to British Crown. Okay, it ended the system of double government because initially there was a board of control and court of director. So they are also abolished. So it did not alter in any substantial way the system of government that prevailed in India. Okay, so I hope you understand. Only statement 2 is correct. Now why statement 1 is incorrect? So Charter Act 1813 instead of Charter Act 1853, because in option they given Charter Act 1853, but we already discussed it is Charter Act 1813 who ended the company, means British East India Company monopoly in India to do trade. Okay, but there was some exception, means there was some power that was available to the British East India Company, that was to do trade with China, tea and in coffee. In opium. Okay, I hope you understand it. So this is one thing. So easy everyone. So this is very important. If explanation is good, automatically you are going to get more information. I hope it is okay. Now see the third question of this series. Which one of the following acts of British India strengthened the Viceroy's authority over his executive council by substituting portfolio or departmental system for corporate functioning, students? So I already told you that there was basically there is a legislative council, means executive council is there. Okay, now they are going to divide, now they are going to give departments to their members and they will responsible for specific department, students. Okay, so it was by Indian Council Act 1861. It is by the Government of India Act 1858, Indian Council Act 1892 or Indian Council Act 1909 students. Okay, so basically here, if you talk about the Indian Council Act, what you see, they are going to share power with the India. So Indian member is going to be nominated. It is very important, but they are non-official. Okay, so Indian member will be nominated in the for the legislative purpose only. Student, it is very important. What is legislative purpose? They are included only to make law. Okay, but they have very limited power. Okay, they have very limited power. Okay, and by this 1861 Indian Council Act, there was important presidency, that was Bombay and Madras. What do you find, students? Initially their power was controlled and it is came under the authority of Governor General of India. But by Indian Council Act 1861, there were basically restoration of legislative power. So they are also going to make law rules in their sphere, in their territory. I hope you all able to understand. So see students, so the Indian Council Act, it is mentioning about the portfolio system or departmentalization system for corporate functioning. Okay, I hope it is okay. So if you feel doubt, so you guys can discuss with us, as well as explanation is also here. So Indian Council Act 1861 strengthened the Viceroy's authority over his executive council by substituting portfolio or departmental system for corporate functioning. I hope you understand. So they are going to introduce a person who will be head for a department. So the act gave official sanction, okay, to the practice of portfolio allotment, which was started by Lord Canning in 1858. Under the portfolio system, students, the work of the government is divided into several branches and was entrusted to different member of the Governor General Council. Okay, and students, as I already told you, the act is going to restore the legislative power of Madras, Bombay, which were taken back in 1833 Charter Act. Means it, as I already told you, it came under the control of the Governor General of India. And in 1833 Charter Act, basically the Governor General of Bengal came to known as Governor General of India. Easy, everyone? So this is very important. Okay, now we're moving towards the other question, the fourth question of the series. Now read the following statement with reference to Indian Council Act 1861. Okay, once again there is a question that is connected with the Indian Council Act 1861 and choose the correct option. This was asked in the Chhattisgarh PSC pre-examination 2021. It is very, very important, students. Read data carefully, students. Okay, you have to read the data carefully. So if you see, as a result, option statement 1, okay, as a result of this act, the total member of Executive Council of Governor General became 7. Initially it was 4 and 1, means the 5th member was included here, and he will be a law professional, not the law, basically not the advocate. He has his talent as a jurist. Okay, so there was a 5th member included, not the 7th. So sorry, I just mentioned your answer, but yes, you must go further also. For legislative work, number of additional member could be minimum, it should be 6, and maximum it can be 12. So additional member for legislative work, for law making purpose. Okay, so there will be some Indian also, but they are only for non-official member, means they will be the non-official member. and no differentiation was made between state and central subject. Now, what is right answer for the same students? Okay, so there was 5 member. Okay, so council was basically, the 5th member was law, home, military, revenue, finance and law. These are the 4 members is going to be the part of the Governor General's Council, and 3 Indians are nominated. Okay, one was the Maharaja of Patiala, Maharaj of Banaras, as well as Sir Dinkar Rao. Okay, so this is important. Just keep eyes on the same question, students. I hope you all understand. Now, we have to see which option is going to be correct. So this is directly is going to be incorrect. Why? Because it is not 7, it is 5. Okay, no differentiation will made here. Okay, so option B is going to be correct. So statement 2 and 3 are true as for legislative purpose. The Governor General's Council was enlarged from 6, means it must be between the 6 to 12. Okay, I hope you got it. So there was no differentiation between the state and central list, student. Why statement 1 is correct? Because for the executive function of the council, the 5th member was added. He was from the law profession, and these 5 member was belonging from home, military, law, revenue and finance, students. I hope you all able to connect it. So the things are very, very important. Okay, getting it? Now, there is another important question, and this was asked by every examination. When the High Court established in Bombay, Madras and Calcutta. So it is 1861, 1851, 1871 or 1881, students. So when were High Court was established in Bombay, Madras and Calcutta? If you see in reality, students, so there was a act introduced that is called as Indian High Court Act. Okay, so Indian High Court Act was introduced in 1861 with the Indian Council Act, students. It was introduced here 1861, and student, according to this act, the 3 court is going to be created. One is called as basically High Court of Calcutta. Okay, so High Court of Calcutta was basically, it is the first High Court. Initially it was called as Supreme Court of Calcutta. It was called as Supreme Court of Calcutta, that was created in 1774 by Regulating Act 1773, students. We already discussed about the same, but once the Indian High Court Act was introduced, High Court of Calcutta was presented here. So okay, so High Court of Calcutta was established on 2nd of July 1862. Okay, but yes, it is because of the Indian High Court Act 1861, so you must go with the option that is 1861. See, students, it was Calcutta, then High Court of Bombay and High Court of Madras was created. So the Bombay was created on 14th of August 1862 and Madras High Court was created on 15th of August 1862. So sometime they give this question the form of chronological arrangement, so we just discuss here. So just go in the same format. Okay, I hope you understand. Now we are going to see the discussion part of this question. The High Court was established in Bombay, Madras, Calcutta in 1861 by the Indian High Court Act 1861, students. So it's depending on the option. Okay, so it abolished Supreme Court at Calcutta and establishes at the High Court at Bombay, Madras, Calcutta, and also Sadar Adalat in the Presidency's town. It is easy, students. Now once again we moving towards another question, and it is also belonging to Chhattisgarh PSC 2021. See, this question is very important. In every state PSC examination, one question. Every time in the UPSC examination there will be one question. So don't miss this topic. Get the book, do the proper reading there as well as follow this classes. Okay, so what is here under the sixth question? Read the following statement with respect to the Indian Council Act 1892. Choose the correct option. So by the Indian Council Act 1892, as I told you already, it was the updation of 1861 Indian Council Act. So now here see, you have to see, choose the correct option. So it was implemented on 20th of June 1892. So now they are asking a data based question. Out of 24 members, 5 were non-governmental members. Members were given right to ask supplementary question. Student, under the Indian Council Act 1892, the budget discussion was allowed, but there was limitation. They can't ask supplementary question. Okay, so just opt the right answer. Okay, I hope you all able to understand these type of question is definitely it will be in your examination. So now if this is going to be incorrect, means option A is not going to be correct, option C is not going to be correct. Now you have two options left. So out of 24 members, 5 were non-governmental member. No. Okay, so there was a range. Okay, so only option 1 is going to be correct for the same students. I hope you all able to understand. Easy. So we are going to see the discussion part also. Okay, so we will see 1892 Council Act in detail format here. See, this act was implemented on 20th of June 1892. So as you see, it was a previous year question paper, and if you follow this classes, definitely you are able to do. Let's suppose it is going to ask once again in another examination, the statement 2 and 3 are incorrect. Why? Because Indian Council Act 1892 increased the number of additional members in central as well as provincial legislative council, but maintained the official majority with them. Okay, out of 24 members, only 4 members can be Indian. Okay, and act increased the function of legislative council and gave them power to discuss the budget. So they allowed to, you can discuss on the budget, but there is no power to ask supplementary question. As well as I'm just writing here, no right to vote. So they are the part of the legislative, but they don't have any right to vote. They don't have any right to ask a supplementary question, students. But by the 1892 here, a indirect election for legislative part was introduced. Okay, so see, so Indian will be the part of this legislative council, but they have only legislative function. They can't participate much, and they are the non-official member. So I'm just writing here, indirect election will done. Initially it was nominated by the Viceroy, and students here, as I told you, the nomination, the election is only, the member is going to take part, they will only take part in the legislative function. Very limited power they have. Got it? Now we are moving to the another question. By which of the following act Legislative Council of India received the power to discuss on the budget? Okay, now there's another question. Received the power to discuss on budget. So the power to discuss on the budget was given earlier. Then at that time there is no supplementary question they can ask, but later it is also given. So students, Indian Council Act, they have only limited power. They can part of the legislative, but they don't have any power to ask any question. They don't have power to discuss on budget. But in 1892, after the participation of Indian National Congress, the moderate leaders were there. They demanded that Indian should be the part of this Indian Council Act, this Indian Council, or you can say the legislature part. So the moderator wants that the members should be elected directly, but they made a provision that indirect election will done. And here they also got a power to discuss on budget, students. Indian Council Act, here also they got the supplementary question provision. So by the Indian Council Act 1909, they can ask some question also, but here the limitation, no supplementary question. Okay, so this is the demarcation. By this way you have to demark the concept and ideas, students. I hope you understand it. So if you see, option B is going to be correct. We already discussed there will be the budget discussion power, but they cannot discuss, but they cannot ask supplementary question, students. So in 1892, Indian Council Act, Legislative Council of India received the power to discuss on the budget, but they don't have a right to vote on it, and they also not allowed to ask supplementary question from the executive. You can discuss only, not question asking power, but in 1909 they are going to give. That was also in limited sense. Okay, got it. Now, which of the following act provided the communal representation in British India, students? As I already told you, the communal representation means here they are going to create a legislation, they are going to create a law for that is religion based. Okay, so that's what is called as communal representation. So students, for the first time you will see in 1909 the Morley-Minto reform, where the Muslims got the separate electorate. Muslim will get the separate electorate here, and students, that it is considered as the Communal Representation Act also, and it was made by the Morley, the Secretary of State. Minto was the Viceroy of India at that time, and it is also called as Indian Council Act, students. One more thing I like to mention, student, further there will be extension. Okay, so initially only Muslim was provided this communal representation. In 1919, under the Montagu-Chelmsford reform, basically Sikh, Anglo-Indian, European, Christian, they will also get the right, they will also get the communal representation. Student, under the Government of India Act 1935, it is also called as Blueprint of Indian Constitution. Okay, because our major provision is derived from this Government of India Act 1935. And what you see, students, the Government of India Act 1935, they are going to give the communal right. It is already Muslim, Sikh, Anglo-Indian, European, Christian. Here they are going to give rights to Dalit also, Dalit as well as women. So women also get the reservation. Okay, so it is under the Government of India Act 1935. I hope you all able to connect. So the first act where the communal representation was given, that was Morley-Minto reform. So Morley-Minto reform of 1909 provided for communal representation in British India. The Morley-Minto reform is also known as Indian Council Act 1909, and as we already discussed, it provided for the first time the system of communal representation for Muslim by accepting the concept of separate electorate. Under this, the Muslim member were to be elected only by Muslim voter. Thus, this act is legalizing the communalism, and Lord Minto came to known as father of communal electorate in India, students. So these type of question sometime they are going to ask in your examination. I hope you all able to understand. Easy, everyone? Okay, so if you feel doubt, just tell me. Everything is going well? Okay, so this is necessary also. Okay, got it? So now we are moving towards the next question. The Act of 1909 was associated with, very recent question that was asked in the MPPSC pre-paper. So 1909 given what? Introduction of separate electorate, decentralization, diarchy, or legislative council was introduced here. So diarchy, whenever there is a question connected with the diarchy, that was introduced in 1919 students. Decentralization of power, there will be multiple events, as if you are going to see the portfolio system, that was 1861. Okay, and decentralization means the more power is going to be shared. So here in 1909, the introduction of separate electorate, for the first time Muslim got the separate electorate. So the Act of 1909 was associated with separate electorate. It introduced separate electorate for the Muslims. Some constituency was earmarked for Muslim and only Muslim could vote their representative. Parliamentary reform also increased the Indian participation in the Legislative Council. Okay, so the number is going to be increased from 16 to 60. Okay, so this is also very, very important. Okay, and under the Indian Council Act, they also got the right to ask question, supplementary question also. Got it? Now, another question we have, which of the following act introduced the separate electorate system in India? So we already discussed that, students. It was Indian Council Act. Here the separate electorate was created, and under the Indian Council Act, students, basically the Legislative Council was enlarged. Okay, so initially there was 16 member. By 1892, now it is going to be 60 students. So this is important. Okay, so the connectivity is needed here. So Indian Council Act 1909 introduced the separate electorate system in India. Under this act, Muslim members were to be elected only by Muslim voter. Thus, the act legalized communalism. And students, this is also provided separate electorate for Chamber of Commerce, Bengal Chamber of Commerce, and separate electorate for universities and Jamindars. I hope you all able to connect it. Now see the another question. Under which of the following act separate electorates were created to represent India, Indian Christians and Anglo-Indians? Now this question is belonging to UPPSC 2011. So Indian Council Act 1861, no provision was made. Government of India Act 1909, at that time Muslim got the separate electorate students. The Government of India Act 1919, at that time Anglo-Indian, Christian, Sikh, they got the separate electorate. So we already discussed about the same. So automatically option C is going to be correct. Under the Government of India Act 1919, separate electorate were expanded to Sikh, Christian, European, Anglo-Indian. The word here for the first time is introduced, that is responsible government. Okay, in this act, Central Legislative Council was converted into bicameral legislature. So this is another important event that you need to remember. Means two houses is going to be created at the center. Okay, so Montagu-Chelmsford proposal were related to what? It is social reform, it is educational reform, it is reform in the police administration, or it is the constitutional reform, students. So as we already discussed, there was Indian Council Act 1861. It was updated as Indian Council Act 1892. Once again it was updated. It has came to known as Indian Council Act 1909. And after 10 years, students, it is updated once again. That was Indian Council Act 1919. So this is called as Montagu-Chelmsford reform. This was introduced in 1919, students, and this is a constitutional reform. Here they are going to introduce reforms under the 1909, and now it is a new rules and regulation that was introduced by the Britishers in India. I hope you're connecting it. Okay, so Montagu-Chelmsford proposal was related to the constitutional reform in India. The Secretary of State announced on 20th of August 1917 the objective of British government in India to introduce the gradual introduction of responsible government. Thus, they are going to introduce an act, that is 1919, and that came into force in 1921. Okay, as it introduced the bicameralism and direct election in the country for the first time. What is bicameralism here, students? Bicameralism means there will be two houses. One will be called as lower house, other will be called as upper house. Okay, I hope you all able to connect. Great. Now another question we have: in which year the last election of Indian legislature under the Government of India Act 1919 was held, students? Okay, so last election in Indian legislature under the Government of India Act 1919 was held. So this question was asked in 2020 under the MPPSC paper. See, so continuously there was multiple election. Okay, but the last was conducted in 1945. As you know, after that India became independent. So 1926, 1937, 1945, this is basically election year. So you need to understand this. Okay, so under the Government of India Act 1919, the last election of Indian legislature was held in 1945. Okay, elections were held in British India in December 1945. Elected member of the Central Legislative Assembly and the Council of State. Okay, and students, here what you find, out of 102 seats, Congress won 57, basically Muslim League 30, independent candidate was 5, Akali will get the 2 seats, European won 8 seats. Okay, so this is about some data. Now another thing we have, and this is very important, as we already discussed, under the Government of India Act 1919, a new provision was basically given, that was diarchy. Under the diarchy there was a provision, transferred subject and reserved subject. So the Government of India Act 1919, the function of provincial government were divided into reserve and transferred subject. Which of the following was treated as a reserve subject, students? So as you can see here, there are two types of provision, reserve power and transferred power. See, this reserve power is basically administered by governor plus his executive council. Okay, and there will be no responsibility under the towards the legislative. So they are working independently, and that's why they are it is called as national building element. Okay, means basically the provision which is under the reserve category, they are considered as the national building elements. And transferred subject is given to whom? It is given to governor, and basically it is functioning with the minister. So minister will work and they are going to be responsible. So basically this transferred subject are those subject which is for the local development. Okay, so for the local development, what you find? Education, public work, agriculture, local self-government, it is the part of the transfer subject. Okay, and in the same format, public health, sanitation and medical, as well as industry and industrial research, this is the part of the local work. But administration of justice, it is the reserve subject today also. Land revenue, the central means it will be the governor provision, as well as the police. So automatically what you find, students, option 1, 3 and 4 is going to be correct. You need to understand here. Even today we are following the same type of provision under the Schedule 7 of the Indian Constitution. Okay, so in the Government of India Act 1919, administration of justice, land revenue, police was treated as reserve subject. So as I told you, there is a two important list, reserve and transferred list. Reserve list comprised subject managed by governor through executive council of bureaucrats, and it encompasses law and order, finance, land revenue, irrigation and among others. Transfer subject are basically these are the subject which is overseen by ministers chosen from the elected member of the legislative council. These are health, education, local government, industry, excise and agriculture. So these are basically under the control of ministers. Okay, so they are taking care for the same. Now we are moving towards the 15th question. Which of the following statute provide the independent election commission under the British period regime. So during the time of British period, so by which of the following act a independent election commission was created? So what you see, students, when open election was allowed, that was year 1919. So under this provision, they are going to give this power. So Indian Council Act 1892, at that time election was indirect. Montagu-Chelmsford Reform or Improvement Act 1919, Morley-Minto Reform 1909, or Indian Administration Act 1985. So what you find, students, if for the first time here at the major scale in the provinces also, at the center also, election is going to be conducted. So they introduce a independent election commission here. I hope you all able to connect it. Those who are very new to this channel, subscribe the channel, press the bell icon for your regular update, and you will find, students, here the Montagu-Chelmsford Improvement Act 1919 provided an independent election commissioner under the British government regime, and under this act, students, the general election was held in British India were to held in 1920, okay, to elect the member of Imperial Legislative Council and Provincial Council, but it is going to be postponed. Okay, I hope you all able to understand it. Easy, everyone. So this is important to understand, okay, how to proceed with the question. And we already discussed ki with the Arihant, the success is going to be easy if you're going to follow this book, that is Prelims Possible, this red book, and it is going to be important because it contains lots of information along with the topic based data. So this book is available for each and every subject like history, geography, Indian polity, economy, as well as general science. And what you find, students, this book is totally dedicated for all state PSC examination as well as for the UPSC IAS examination. So it is 100% error free. Detailed explanation is here. Knowledge plus with a typical question, PYQs bullet for revision, along with that, students, free package chapter test also. So you must go with the books and it will be good for you. This is all about the today's session. I hope you enjoyed the session. If you feel any doubt and difficulties, I am always open for you. So you guys can write anything in the comment box. We'll meet soon, everyone. Take care. Have a great day, and hit the like button, share this video with your friends also. Thank you so much.